I think those who might be listening to this right now who aren't familiar with Inspection Go or aren't part of Inspection Go, most of these solutions that we offer to home inspection companies are at no cost. And so I just encourage, this is not a pay to play kind of game. And I think we just welcome the chance to chat with them and show them how it all works and let them see if it's something that they like to be part of.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Triangle Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Fagioli, here with Executive Director of Triangle MLS, Matt Fowler. How you doing, man?
Hey, Matt. How are you today, man?
Doing great. And today's special guest is a friend for a long time industry veteran, Celeste Starchild. How are you?
Hi, doing great. Thank you. How are you doing today?
Doing awesome. It's a beautiful day here. Well, I guess we're all East Coast-ish and, close enough together. We're probably experiencing the same weather, but an amazing day. And we're excited to talk about inspections, which is always an important subject for agents and brokers. And you're doing something really, really innovative in the space. And we were excited to have you on to talk about that. Could you maybe just start by telling us a little bit about all of the exciting things that you've been up to and changing the industry, as it were?
I would be glad to. First, though, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here and great to see some industry friends, albeit online. Yeah, so my name is Celeste Starchild. I'm the president of Inspection Go. And I joined Inspection Go about 4 years ago. And I came over from a role. I was at realtor.com and I was heading up property data strategy there after working at ListHub for a lot of years. I think I was with ListHub for about 8 years. And so property data has been something I've been focused on for a long time in my career. And I was always intrigued about home inspections because there is just so much information being gathered by a home inspector about a house and, way beyond what's otherwise available or known about houses, down to the condition of every appliance and doorknob and just these very, very granular, detailed pieces of information. And I always thought that was really interesting in terms of how we could just use that information to understand what needed to be fixed, what needed to be done when an appliance was going to be at the end of life or the roof was going to be at end of life on a home, things like that to, help consumers to be, better homeowners with a little more ease than it is today. And so I met up with some folks, John Russell, our CEO, who had a background in home inspection, knew the industry very well. And also Mark Wise, our chief product officer, who was the chief product officer at ListHub as well. So he and I go way back and worked together many, many years. And got to talking with them and realized that this was an interesting opportunity to really modernize part of the industry that had been a little bit left behind by technology over the years. And so for the last 4 years, we've been working in the home inspection space. And our company overall, we have a variety of different solutions that we have for home inspectors, and everything from, coaching and events with masterminding, which I know is, near and dear to your world, Matt, and all the way to back office software for home inspection companies, just to give them all the things that they need to manage all their bookings, their schedules, and payroll, all that exciting, fun stuff on the back end. But, along the way, when you're able to really modernize things within a business from the inside out like that, it really shows up in the kind of services that an inspection company can actually offer to their agent partners as well as to the buyers who use their services. So I think, be good to talk about some of those things today that really, really help realtors and really, really help buyers to have a better experience. So yeah, it's what I've been up to for 4 years.
Cool. I didn't know you've been doing it that long, Celeste. So we had a little conversation in the startup about North Carolina has licensing for home inspectors. I've got maybe a few questions to get into how this can help your average realtor out there trying to get deals done my role as executive director is to introduce them to tools that can solve problems for them. And, one thing that realtors are really great at doing, I dig at them about this all the time, is doing it the same way they've always done it over and over again. And, that works for a while until it doesn't. And then there you are. So for the people watching today, maybe tell us where you intersect with the other realtor through the licensed appraisal structure like we have in North Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of key areas. So usually when a realtor is on the buy side for a transaction and it's time to book an inspection, most of the realtors that I know, they kind of keep a Rolodex, so to speak, of a handful of inspectors that they've worked with before that they recommend, and they usually send an email and say, here's a couple to look at. Our data actually shows that about 50% of the time, the buyer's agent is the one picking up the phone and booking that inspection. So about 50-50 out there. But, with our services, we do have a national platform for booking. So a realtor could send a link for igobooking.com over to their buyer and say, here is a platform where you can go on, put in your information, and basically our platform will help you shop. So whether you're mostly interested in the schedule, and so we have those people who are just really have to get it done by a certain date. Can you find me an inspector who can get it done by this certain date? And then you have some that are really price shopping and some that are capability shopping. So some inspection companies are able to do tons of different ancillary services. So if your buyer wants, say, a residential home inspection plus termite plus radon plus a sewer scope, it's nice if you can find a company that can do all of that under one roof versus calling multiple companies to come out. So depending on what that buyer is really looking for, the service can help them to shop. And yes, it's technology, but yes, there are people, and there's a whole team in a call center of people who know home inspection. So they're there to help and really help that buyer get what they're looking for. But you mentioned, Matt, about the licensing. So North Carolina is, lucky in that way. I'd say realtors in the market are lucky in the sense there are about 13 states out there that don't require any sort of licensing whatsoever to become a home inspector. So you have to be extra careful in those states who you choose. But even in states that are licensed states for home inspection, it's still important to make sure that the inspection company has the right levels of insurance to cover their practice. We require membership with the trade organization in home inspection. It's called InterNACHI, and we think that just brings that much more level of professionalism and standards, and so we do require InterNACHI membership to be part of the IGO network. So we have, barriers to entry to home inspection can be fairly low. We raise the bar so that, any inspector that's going to be on the igobooking.com platform, they're going to have that level up on all those dimensions and make sure that you're getting a reputable inspector through the network. So that's definitely a resource, I think, to realtors nationwide who, I think a lot of realtors, they want to make sure that, their buyer's getting a good service, right?
Sure.
And at the same time, most realtors don't want to be too overly steering about which inspector to use. It's usually the buyer's choice. So I think the platform kind of gives that nice balance between you're going to get a good inspector who's qualified to do the job, but the buyer can make the choice as to, what the best fit is for them. So.
Mm-hmm. You said nationwide. What is the coverage like?
So we're in the top 200 MSAs. So the top 200 markets in the United States, we have coverage. I would say our coverage tends to go really deep in metro areas versus covering every zip code in the country. So we definitely
Mm-hmm.
have some states in the middle of the country that are a little more shallow, but everywhere coastal around the U shape of the United
Sure.
States, we've got great coverage there.
So in our setup, you mentioned three things that you thought were really pertinent to talk to the brokers and the realtors about. Let's walk through that and make sure that they know about those things.
Okay, so number one is igobooking.com. So just, go ahead and play around with it. I mean, igobooking.com and, you'll come to a page. It takes about 3 minutes to pop in, the address and a couple of little details on like, is this a vacant house or does, access have to be coordinated? By the way, our team will do all the coordination. That's always one of the things, who's going to
Yeah.
coordinate all the parties and the listing agent and everybody else to make sure everybody can accommodate the time. So they handle.
You probably know Go Booking is the first one. Let's remember that. You probably, you're very familiar with this, um, Celeste. We have integrations inside the MLS platforms that we support where they already, click the showing time button, for example, to schedule a showing. If they've got a buyer, they need to go in that house and have all these rules in place. Have you done an integration with an MLS in that way that would point to you?
We have not. We have not. I think the logical point would be when the deal is, well, I guess the seller side would mark it pending or contingent, right? So
Mhm.
if it's a
Change
listing
status.
agent who does that, or within the forms, right? So when the buyer's agent is, getting that offer letter signed by all the parties, it'd be somewhere around that part of the transaction right there when a trigger somewhere, it could make sense for that.
Yeah, we have some of those, a microservice that watches for events such as this that would generate an action like a CRM would. So, maybe it's a message to the right person that says, click here to go make home inspection better.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, that'd be pretty interesting. I mean, it's all about the workflow, right? How can you just make
Yeah.
it all happen faster and smoother? Because we're really not in all of this for the clicking around in the paperwork, right?
Mm.
It's
Well,
work.
I've got 5 written specific strategic objectives, and one of them is make member tasks easier. So, the the friction surrounding this particular activity, just like that of scheduling a showing, I think can be helped a lot by this call center kind of concept. The showing center concept or call center is quite popular. I think it is currently the most popular service that we offer because it's one number for everything. So maybe
Yeah.
it's kind of bringing that sort of very proven way to solve this particular bit of chaos right into the home inspection environment.
Yeah. So you mentioned friction. That reminds me of the second one. The second
Mm,
one has to do with that moment when that inspection report comes back and there's some laundry list, a short one or a long one of things that are wrong with the house. There's always
mm,
something, right?
of course.
And there is a moment in time and with many of these inspections where there's a need to understand, okay, what's the cost of all this, right? What's the damage going to be? What's the impact overall of all these issues? And in a lot of cases, getting to that source of truth on how much it's going to cost can be a scramble. And this I know so hard for the buyers, for the realtors, because a lot of times you're sending out contractors to get a real estimate. You're on that, you've got a contingency window that's coming up. So time is of the essence. And I think it's really awkward with the contractors who may or may not really get a job out of those estimates that
Sure.
they go out and do. And so with every booking that we book through our igobooking.com, it comes with Repair Pricer. And Repair Pricer is a tool that was the company that actually built it. We acquired them. They're called Repair Pricer. And the founder of that company, Christian Adams, he was a real estate broker. And he built this because he had this problem and saw it enough times that he wanted to build a solution for it. So he definitely comes from the perspective of knowing the pain of that in the real world.
I love it when the industry solves problems that way. I was an
Right.
appraiser using a really terrible MLS system and thought, okay, this is so bad. I think even I could do better than this. Right. I mean, it's just so horrible. And that was in
Need
98.
Right. There you go. Right. So need is the mother of invention.
Yeah, for sure. So that got plugged into your workflow, and
Yeah.
that's something that comes. So allows you to take that inspection report that comes back from this independent contractor out there, and it comes in a way that lets you what tell it
Yeah, we'll
what needs to
deliver.
be fixed?
Yeah, we'll deliver it to you. So, for anybody who's a techie out there who wants to know the details on how it works, it uses AI and natural language processing to read the inspection report and produce price point or price estimates for every single thing. So it's all itemized. You'll get your
Yep.
report and it'll have like all the plumbing items, all the electrical items, all of, each section. And then it'll have individual issues that were documented in the inspection report and how much it costs to fix it. So that just is like, let's cut down the time that it's going to take to come to a decision. Because really, that's what you're trying to do, right? How are you
Yeah.
going to negotiate this?
Yeah, but
Um,
also in a fair way, like you've already picked the inspector, you haven't picked the inspector. You sent them to a place where they can pick an inspector that's kind of like once removed, and that works. Now you have this only as biased as the AI and learning tool, but generally less biased, I think we can all say, as human beings are. You have this kind of cleaner, let's put it that way of dealing with this pricing pain point. That's a significant. No wonder you acquired them. That's a significant add. I think maybe before we move on to the third one, uh, is that like that's how long has that been up and running in the network, the repair pricer?
um, So we actually launched a partnership with them before we acquired the
Sure,
company
sure.
a year ago. And so we were working together for about a year, I'd say. We've been
Mm.
about 2 years now offering Repair Pricer as part of our overall solution. So but Repair Pricer itself has been around for a long time. And, as we all know, about AI, everybody knows a little bit of something about AI these days. And, it's something that benefits from information, right? Is no good without some raw data or information that's
To
being
learn
fed into
from, yeah.
it that it can learn from. Exactly. So the Repair Pricer tool has processed close to 1 million inspection reports.
Wow.
And the way it's learned is it has, driven the pricing, like produce those Repair Pricer reports. And then not only that, we have an actual contractor team, again, humans,
Hmm.
who
Hmm.
review that and then take the pricing and pinpoint it, right? And
Mm.
so they adjust it, and their adjustments are fed back into the machine so the AI can get smarter and smarter over time. So we don't just rely on
Fascinating.
AI, we rely on AI and the contractor teams. We have a whole pricing team that,
Hmm.
processes these all the time. And that's
Yeah, and
really
my people are becoming so sensitive to this, as you might imagine, Celeste. So the data that you're learning from is the data that's inside the home inspection software system, right? So um, we have a question coming up about how you might work in a perfect way with an MLS ecosystem. But just to for the bean counters in my audience who are quick to send me texts about licensing their data to learning models, which for the record, I'm not doing, it, in this or any other enterprise that we're working on at the moment. We're certainly all contemplating how do you use LLMs to actually do a better job for the consumer? That's what we're kind of focused on, not kind of focused on here, hopefully. And it's going to make us more productive in the meantime. Maybe it makes the realtor, if he uses these tools, look like five people instead of the way he used to struggle doing it on paper. But that's all really good news that these are tools that our professionals can really use.
what you just said,
Real.
Matt, is really important, actually. And I should have been more crisp about this. The repair pricer never goes directly to the buyer. It always goes to the buyer's agent because depending on the deal and there could be so many different nuances that we make
Mm-hmm.
sure that the buyer's agent gets it, and it's at their discretion how they want to share it. They can even narrow it down. So in other words, if there were 500 things on the inspection report that are wrong with the house, but really only 3 of them matter that were big
Sure.
enough to make a difference, then they can choose to share a view of just the 3 top things.
Mm-hmm.
Because the buyer's
That
agent's going to.
sounds like the real world, right? I mean, there's all
Yeah,
this
yeah,
stuff that the home inspection
exactly.
found, but if you actually want the house, you need to
Yeah,
like focus and what's the deal breaker for you.
Man,
Um,
exactly.
as a 20-year agent and broker, I'm going to say amen to that piece. That was really, really, that's really good, Celeste. That's awesome. I'm glad you shared that.
I was going to
Yeah. So
say it was built by a broker. So
yeah, yeah. So you're just really empowering that guy who's trying to get this deal closed with a lot of information. It's learning that model's just going to get better as as more data comes into it. Um, and then maybe we always look for other data products and ways to partner with people, and certainly the home inspection community is an important segment of our membership. We want to we're always thinking of ways to use the data that's licensed to us to in ways that empower the creators of that data, the intellectual property right holders, the creators out there. They entrust us with their information, and we want to make sure that we're getting maximum value for them out of that. So we have 1.3 million transactions with a lot of very detailed information about each of these deals going back 20 something years. And we would love to find a way to expose the pieces of it that make the model work better for our subscribers to partners through our APIs that just make the whole system smarter. And I think that's something you'd want to be a member of. And we're a member driven organization. So that's what we're focused on using these AI tools for. This is just a great example. There's another example, and we'll go to number 3 of looking at the buyer offer form. If everybody in the network fills out the same form, as you fill out that form, you can virtually have, a broker with 70 years experience sitting on your shoulder saying, well, actually only 4% of the people who use that number have a successful transaction, except instead of looking at the universe of properties that the lady saw over her career, it would be 80,000 transactions, right?
right,
That no one could know all of them. So
right.
we're really excited really about tools like that can just, that we can learn from the knowledge that we've built together to make every subscriber just look like 10 people or look like they have 50 years of experience, by not offering something that the system knows isn't going to be successful before you're even done with it.
Exactly. And you nailed it. That is the opportunity that these technologies have the ability to bring to the industry. And I think, your some of the things you say are, also cautionary, right? That it has to be done in the right way. And, having that kind of oversight, you do have to be careful and mindful what, random online tools you kind of
Well, I think if you look at
into and
there are some big name .coms that we won't name specifically that maybe you used to work for that didn't defend the brand in the licensing of the brand in quite the way that they would have liked to have in hindsight. Is that fair? Right.
I
So yeah, but I mean,
That was a
yeah,
loaded question.
I'm sorry, there are brands that have gotten away from
yes,
us, right? And I
yes,
think that's fair to say. And
yes, absolutely.
this is very Monday morning quarterbacking here. I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong. It just turned out that way, right? So we have an opportunity now when we're rebooting this stuff, and we are kind of moving into a new environment where I think there are billion-dollar companies and data sets being created around us that we're maybe not fully aware of. And my job as a director is to make sure that the intellectual property creators are properly defended in the licensing environment that we're putting together out there. And that's just something that's on our minds a good bit when especially when we're talking about, signing a license to a learning model that once ingested, our 1.3 million things will have been learned. It's not
Right.
a genie you put back in the bottle. So it's something that we think about a good bit. So,
That's right.
but we did
That's right.
just build a really cool API to make it more accessible. Just converted everything to current research standards, which will, of course, make working with any company a lot easier. Since our data looks like the data you just looked at in those 200 markets that you're in. So your third point.
Yeah. So the third point really ties in a little bit to this topic that you're just describing around, data usage. And, we also, and we at Inspection Go, but I would say also just speaking for myself through my career, it's something I've been really championing since those days at List Hub, which is, making sure that, the person or the company or the individual who's out there kind of collecting the data or, really puts in that work, or who owns that work product gets to leverage it, gets to use it, whether that's through, monetization, or whether that's through some other way. And in the case of a home inspection, that data it belongs to the home buyer. They bought the inspection service outright in most cases. Now, every inspector has their own contract, and there could be some shared rights in there, but certainly the home buyer has a right to that data. And so what we're trying to do is take that information, and instead of that home inspection report being a one and done kind of report that gets thrown in a file somewhere, never to be seen again, what we want to do is we want to keep that data alive and make it work for that homeowner, right? So the buyer closes on the house, hopefully, and then what? Now we have, so many years of, maintaining that home, and that inspection information powers our home binder product. And home binder is a platform that centralizes all things home for that home owner, home buyer, homeowner, and gives them a place where all of they can store things like transaction documents and those sorts of things, paint colors, all the good stuff. But it's fundamentally powered by all the inspection data with the age of life of
Mm.
all of the appliances. In fact, it does produce all of the appliance warranties, recalls, user manuals, all of that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
So I just bought a house 2 years ago, and they came with one of these from the franchise, right? That
Yeah.
the realtor franchise that was the buyer's agent, and what you had to go in and use the camera to get the serial numbers off of everything. It was kind of a hassle. So you're saying that that stuff all been collected during the inspection, and in a more thorough way than
Yep.
you know some software guy like me with his iPhone under the dishwasher.
Right.
Like, I'm probably going to get it wrong, but this is a professional who's already done this already. That seems like a materially better way, like a materially better experience to start that home owner portal preloaded with all that stuff.
Hands down. And in a word, that's why I'm here at Inspection Go, because I think this is so compelling. And if you asked me, what are the chances of, one of these platforms being successful long term, if you have to upload everything,
Mm.
I'm not putting my money on it. I'm just not. So
I'm not.
I
I'm
know
no
how
longer using it, right? So it was just not useful. I mean, it didn't go
right,
away. I guess I unsubscribed or something. But
right.
so it wasn't effective in keeping me connected with my realtor Rob.
Mhm.
Uh, that's one of the things that might keep me connected to him. So
And it is. And home binder, obviously, the inspectors we work with want to show their gratitude to the agents that refer business their way. And everything is branded to the agent. But for the agent, it's set it and forget it. It's, put up your photo, your logo, whatever it is you want on your brand,
mhm.
and it shows up in all of the binders for your clients.
So this is an agent or broker branded home inspector provided
Yes.
uh, home owner portal.
Yes.
Uh,
It was a mouthful.
that's okay. Okay.
It is.
That
Well,
keeps
that's the real estate industry, right? Where,
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
team
yeah, yeah.
sport. It's a team sport.
Well, we'll have an acronym for that in a few weeks. It'll be like that long. Okay. Well, but that's what we're talking about. So if you're in our home inspector environment, I know we have several hundred licensed home inspectors in our membership lists. We'll make sure to get this particular podcast out to that segment of our membership and make sure they know about it. But what do you want to say to them, to the home inspector community um, about what makes this experience really better? If you could maybe just sum that up, Celeste. And I've got one final question for you.
Sure. I think what I'd say to the home inspection community is I think those who might be listening to this right now who aren't familiar with Inspection Go or aren't part of Inspection Go, most of these solutions that we offer to home inspection companies are at no cost. And so I just, encourage, this is not a pay to play kind of game. And I think we just welcome the chance to chat with them and show them how it all works and let them see if it's something that they like to be part of. And yeah, so that's what I'd say the inspection companies, those of you who are on our platform, we love you. Good to see you. And, we so appreciate our inspection partners in the industry.
And maybe that's a good segue, Celeste, to my question that we queued up before. Like for the home inspector subscribers that are out there wanting to know why the executive director is not working on the MLS system, and I'm talking to Celeste today, it's because we want to expose things that could make the whole ecosystem work better. But we really haven't changed it a lot over time. We just did an MLS conversion in November, and we had been using the old one for 9.5 years, almost 10 years, without really touching it. So, I think the world has gone around a lot of times since in the last 10 years, and real estate certainly changed dramatically. So the idea that the same tool sets, the same ways of doing things would be the same things that we'd be using, going on in the future, I think it's just nuts and wrong. So one of the things that I always ask is to benefit home inspectors and certainly the realtors that are closing these deals. What would you do as the president of your company if you could like reach down inside the MLS wiring and make it work the way you know it would work best for the home inspectors and for the realtors to get your thing done? Is it access to data? We talked a little bit about the workflow. What is it that I can actually do in real life to make it work better?
Oh, goody. Well, so what I would do is I would have the property information from multiple listing, trigger off the request for an inspection, right?
That status change, we have the ability to send notices to the right people. But when that happens and we know something's like a contract, signed contracts come in and we have stuff to do.
Exactly. Yep. Now the buyer or the buyer's agent, they're going to usually need to request that inspection. So why the heck do they have to pick up the phone and call the inspection company and sit there for 20 minutes, 123 Elm Avenue, no ELM, and spelling out their email address and all of that good stuff? Why are we spelling email addresses? So I would take all of that friction out of it and have it, just be a button click. I think that there's some really interesting things about the MLS data that, there's knowledge there, for example, that they're of the type of like if there's sewer scope might be recommended, for example, for that property, if perhaps, there might be a pool present at that property and a pool inspection might be advisable. So there are some things about that property data that should trigger, information or suggestive, in fact, suggestive, I want to say suggestive selling, but, suggestive services that the buyer should consider.
Yeah.
So
I think of those as alerts.
Yeah.
Along the way, like we're going to put up a flag and we just want, like, we know that a lot of things get missed right there. So we'll send up a flag. If you've got it covered, then keep going. But we're going to try and just back you up if we can.
Exactly. So, I think that's the biggest thing is just kind of letting that request flow out, more seamlessly, So yeah, that's probably the biggest from an MLS perspective.
We just spent almost a year building our new RESO API. So we have the automation in place to be able to do things exactly like that. So I'm really interested in that. We're going to talk to our home inspectors. We have a new way to get home inspector opinion into our stakeholder advisory council that we'll be talking about soon. So when you see this, home inspectors, if you're interested in, making sure the MLS knows what you're thinking and what your pain points are, we're really interested in solving it if we can, through partnerships with companies like Celeste and Inspection Go. So I think those were the 3 points I wanted to go over, and I wanted to hear what I could really do to help you actually move the needle. So we'll take that and talk to our stakeholders about it and hopefully get to see more of this in our system soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, it was great to have this conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks, Celeste.
Thanks, Celeste. Thanks, Matt.
See you guys back here.
Good to see you both.